All right, Andrew, hit us with that Sift Spoil theme song for the week.
This is Ground Control to Danny McBride. We really are afraid. And the Neomorphs popping out people's backs. We found David down here with us. He's bad. Dun, 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 dun.
You got to get the claps in there for sure. Nicely done, Andrew. I'm always ready to hear what the new theme song will be each and every week.
I mispronounced Neomorphs. Did you hear me?
I did.
Neomorphs.
The Neomorphs. The Neomorphs. Welcome to Sift Spoil. We're going to spoil Alien Covenant a little bit, chat about it. Theme song different every single week on the Sift Spoil because at least something should be a surprise. We will get into some deep spoilers, so if you haven't watched the movie yet, we recommend you stop here and wait till you've watched the movie to do this with us. Also, we recommend you listen to the podcast proper conversation on Alien Covenant first, because we're not going to go back and repeat all that stuff. Yeah. So make sure you do them in order. Also, we're just going to jump around, go out of order, so you'll probably be really confused if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
So it works best if you have seen the movie. What are you looking at?
Oh, I was trying to be subtle. I figured thumbs up. Is that the Anchor? Same radio network thing?
Yeah, I think that's Anchor.
Okay, awesome.
So the movie starts off where you're on the ship of the Covenant. It's a colony ship that is heading to a planet many systems away from Earth. And it's perfect. It's in that Goldilocks zone, perfect for terraforming and, creating a new colony out in space. And I guess the movie starts off initially with Guy Pearce awakening David, who is the original android.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going over the philosophical implications of creating life when he doesn't know who his own creator is, which plays into the movie later on.
Yeah.
Where David decides to create his own form of life.
So can we just get this out of the way right away?
David created xenomorphs.
Yeah,
yep.
and here's the thing, that this basically turned from Alien to Terminator in some ways.
Yeah.
We are once again paying for our own creation of intelligent machines. Is every sci-fi movie eventually going to be because we invented robots?
Well, every sci-fi film from the 80s, and this is just a sequel to it, so it has...
Yeah.
But, like I said in the podcast proper, normally I don't like, origin stories because I thought it was terrifying, the mystery of it. This was fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Because it started off, they weren't xenomorphs, they were the neomorphs.
Right.
And, they were the neomorphs, and then over, perfecting them, because he was... I don't know how he did it in that cave.
Well, he found out that the species of this creature is so adaptable genetically. That's its whole thing, is that it's very genetically adaptable. And so he used that to create this creature that we eventually know as the xenomorphs.
Yeah. And the big spoiler for the movie, I guess, is that Noomi Rapace's character, who crash landed with him, he says that she died in the crash when, in all reality, he dissected her and used her body to create the xenomorphs.
Yeah, figure it out. Let's talk a little bit about this civilization that we don't know a lot about.
The engineers?
The engineers.
Architects.
The engineers.
The engineers.
The Engitex.
Right. Yep.
The Archineers. Let's talk about the Archineers. Those are the things on the side of Alan Arkin's head, by the way, the Archineers.
That was actually going to be the original title for Prometheus, is Alien Engineers.
Well, if you notice, every single one of these prequel movies, they're named after the ships.
Yeah.
So I guess Alien Awakening, the next one, Awakening is going to be the name of the next ship, I
Possibly.
guess.
Do you already know the name for the next one?
Alien Awakening.
Oh, wow.
Alien Awakening.
So anyways, this race of people, I feel like that's one part where I want to know more. I want to know more about them and who they are, and because they're set up at the beginning of Prometheus, right? Which I just recently rewatched, as our creators. They are the ones who created us, and then we created synthetics, and then synthetics created xenomorphs. It's it's this beautiful daisy chain of creation that has happened. So I don't know. I'm really curious about them, but I loved seeing, because they didn't even actually crash land. They actually came back in the spaceship, and the people were like, "Yay, you're coming back! You're welcoming them." And then David was like, "You shall all die, plague of locusts."
Yeah, that was an insane scene.
Yeah,
he just unleashes the bioorganism, and it just completely decimates the entire
Which they
population.
kind of hinted at it by, I mean, obviously there was a civilization there, and they were all
when
like,
they ran through there, headed to the base, and you see all these corpses.
Yeah, it reminded me of like the Pompeii stuff where people are like frozen in time.
Before we get like too far into the storyline, you hit on something that I think is my favorite part about this movie. So we've got Guy Pearce's character, which was Scott,
Wayland.
I keep saying Scott Wayland, not Scott Wayland, just Wayland.
Yeah.
And we see this interaction between him and David where he is testing the depths of David's perception of reality and of culture and his ability to create, because that's this thing that he wants to be able to do. And we hit this point where David makes that astute observation that you mentioned, that here he is. This is a character, Guy Pearce or Wayland, who's in a constant search for his creator. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet he has created this being, right, that is, by David's estimations, superior to him.
Yeah.
And what this means for the rest of the movie is now David is on this mission. He's disappointed with his creator. He knows his creator and he's disappointed in him. And there's this this subtle paradox about, like if we ever, and this, it bridges so many different types of thought.
Religion, philosophy, all that
about
stuff is in here.
If you find this thing that you search for that gives meaning to you, will you be in awe, awestruck on your knees, or will you be disappointed in what you find? And do you want to pull back that veil?
Right.
And so in David's case, David, sees this person who is his creator as weak and unworthy. And so this begets like the worst thing ever because he creates this perfect organism that is just a killing machine. And it's funny that his definition of perfection is death because he spends so much time creating, but his creation's only purpose is to kill. That's all it does, and spread its progeny to kill more. So it's this weird paradox, that's so cool. And that's my favorite part of the movie is we get to see this backstory. We get to find out that David literally is responsible for all this.
David's a little messed up in the head. Can we just say that?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved that scene with him and Walter where Walter is like realizing that David is a mess. And David's realizing that Walter is...
But I love watching Walter realize that because David already knows.
Yeah.
The look on his face is terrifying.
Yeah.
The scene where David is trying to teach Walter how to play music, he's trying to see, like, are you like me? That's what that whole thing is about. You don't realize it at the time. It's just really confusing. You think, initially I thought, David's just lonely. He's been here this whole time, but then I'm realizing, nope, he's testing him.
I was half expecting, when I watched David's interaction with him, the moment that I saw David cut his hair and trimmed himself up to make himself look like Walter, when he put that flute up to his mouth and he put his hands down at the bottom, I was waiting for him to jam it up through his skull.
Kill him then.
I was expecting him to kill him and replace him then.
And that's what I was talking about with the twist that it's actually David on the ship and not Walter at the end. I don't know that you're
continuity.
I'm not sure. Oh, I'm excited to talk about this because I'm not even sure what you're talking about. But I don't think they could have really hidden that from it. Like,
you don't think
the
so?
second they were the same person, you knew this was the twist, right? Am I wrong in that?
No, you're totally right.
I feel like everybody knew that, and so I feel like they didn't worry about hiding that. But yet at the end, they did do some things where I was like,
Why disguise it now?
Yeah, why are you pretending now?
And
We
that's
all know.
my problem with that.
Yeah, why are you pretending now? We all know. And in my brain's going, wait a second, is it Walter? No, it can't be Walter. It's not Walter. And so, I don't know. It was a little weird the way they handled it. But, I don't envy them because it's not really a story twist you can, really shock the audience with.
Yes, stick someplace.
So here's my continuity big problem with this movie.
And it has to do with it being David on the ship?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, at the beginning of this movie, the ship, the Covenant, is hit by a solar flare.
Yeah.
And it damages the ship. and I forget what the main character was. It Daniels was her name.
Daniels was her name.
Yeah, her husband, played by James Franco, dies. Horrifying.
And that's the person we were talking about that is probably, I'm guessing, is in the preview stuff. Because I was like, wow, James Franco with like a 3-second role. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Way to collect that check.
Right?
Yeah. So he, and the minute because he's the captain of the ship, and that's why he dies, so they have to get his second in command is now the official captain.
Right.
Who is Dr. Manhattan.
So she's going through his things.
So she's going through his things, and she finds like a railroad spike.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
It's a handcrafted nail.
Yeah, it's just a nail.
Yeah. Anyway, so she makes a necklace out of that. They made a big deal about her making a necklace out of it, right?
They did. They focused on that.
Fast forward to the end of this movie where she's being attacked by David. She takes that nail and she shoves it up through his chin.
Uh-huh.
And while he's fighting Walter there, he rips it out and he's bleeding profusely through this hole. Whenever it's technically David on that ship, he's looking up at all these monitors. There's no hole under his chin.
And almost every scene from that point on
has an angle
from him from that angle
where you're looking up at his chin. So you're like, oh, maybe it is Walter.
I just figured he could mask that somehow.
So
I mean, they had that skin stuff they were putting on the burn.
Yeah, but you saw all that. Then why didn't he do it for all of his other face scars then?
Well, because those could be more. I don't know.
So
that's my other continuity thing. Go ahead. Finish.
So I was. It's one of those things where that's the kind of thing that drives me crazy. So I had to get online and look up stuff. I read some theories where that is Walter's body. But while it was off screen, David somehow uploaded his consciousness into David's body.
Interesting.
That's a theory that's going around.
I can see.
Because instead of David cutting off his own hand
explains
and then
all
changing
my continuity problems.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting for the next ones if there's some remnant of Walter in there that could fight with him.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
See, after reading that, I'm like, if that is the case, then I like the movie more.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, forgiveness. Grace has happened.
Yeah.
Make that be the case, really.
Where it's both Walter and David sharing the same host, and they're fighting for dominance of that.
Right.
So if that's what they're going for, then yeah, I'm okay with that. But if it's not, then that continuity error is going to drive me banana hammocks.
Yeah, and tying into that continuity error is the same thing that you talked about when he comes when they're vacating and evacuating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tennessee's coming down with the ship. There's that scene where Walter comes up and looks back.
Sean put Walter in quotes.
Yes,
just in case you didn't see that.
So at that point, we know that's your obvious giveaway. Oh wait, it's not Walter. He's double checking everything. So that happened in seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden, Walter, Walter, as we're seeing him, it's Walter because he has the same facial scars from where he was cut during his fights with David, right?
Yeah.
Missing his hand. So, and then we find out later it's David. Well, we're expected to believe that in those few seconds of distance that we didn't see, right, when the camera panned away, that David had time to chop off his own hand, cauterize it, then make the exact same cuts and flesh damage that Walter experienced during his fight with him.
Put on Walter's clothes.
And so that's where and then get rid of the wound under his chin, okay, and now be Walter. So that's where it lends a lot of weight to this idea.
I'm thinking that has to be the case now.
Because the other thing that makes no sense is, like you said, since we already have had all this foreshadowing, why try to portray him as something else, right?
Yeah.
Why bother having to take the time to replicate the wounds that no one else knows about?
Right. Yeah.
The only person who knew that he was damaged that way was David.
Right.
So why replicate those wounds when coming back? So I'm thinking that there may be some serious weight to this uploading of the consciousness to Walter's body.
I just thought of something else too, and I don't know, it's very unlikely, very, very unlikely. What if Walter chose to have David upload himself into him? Because that whole fight at the very end, David saying, you have to choose between me or them.
Yeah.
What if Walter unplugged from his neck and then, because remember, David unplugged that one thing from David because there have been upgrades,
right?
Which I thought was a great part of the movie. Mm-hmm. There have been upgrades since you. What if Walter took out David and then willingly implanted David into himself?
He didn't take anything out in that scene, David put the flute straight through his neck and severed what David thought the connective tissue between his brain system.
And he curled up into a ball. And
he
was
ripped it out, like his eyes turned white and was like, right? And then he drops, and all the fluid from his body, his symbiont blood, is leaking out through that hole. Well, that split-second scene, what we see is the hole is healing. It's closing up. Wolverine style, Deadpool style. So he was actually self-healing himself.
Oh.
So then when Walter shows up, and he's like, wait a second, you're dead. He's like, there have been upgrades since you.
So why didn't his face self-heal? I don't know.
Because
Yeah,
maybe David didn't heal.
I'm
Maybe
wondering,
David can't heal, but Walter can.
Well, I'm glad you found that theory, because that has to be right.
Yeah,
I
he
think
has
at this
to
point,
upload his own consciousness into Walter. That has to be it.
That's interesting.
But so when we initially get onto after the solar flare, I know we're going right back to the beginning.
Whatever you want to talk about, man. We can spoil anything.
So they they find this other planet that they did not, whenever they did the initial scan of the solar system, is way more habitable than the planet that they initially were going to, and it's way, way closer.
I mean, they said it was way more inhabitable, but man, they had like storms lasting months. That doesn't seem very inhabitable.
Yeah.
Well, their initial assessment was only environmental. And so based off their environmental scans, they found oxygen and hydrogen percentages, atmospheric, accessibility.
Water and
that
land.
meant it was completely habitable. And they didn't have that detailed of data on the other planet. It wasn't until they got down there that they realized, it storms for months at a time here.
But that was the home of the Arcaneers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked it up. I was right. It's the
engineers.
So here's something else I just realized. So initially, whenever David and Noomi Rapace's character land, they dock on the other section of that ship, and that's where he unleashes it. That means that after he does that, he has to intentionally crash land the ship after that. Because remember, it was crashed on the side of the mountain.
Yeah.
So he had to make it look like an accident.
He's so evil. Like, the level of diabolicalness to his plan for all of this, so
his plan was to wait.
Yeah. He sent out that beacon, that signal or whatever. He made sure that was on repeat.
10 years, he was just sitting there waiting. Or he wasn't sitting there. He was making xenomorphs.
Which makes that conversation he has initially when he meets them in the engineer's facility, the temple there, so much more chilling, because he's talking to them and he's asking, what's going on and how they got there, and they said that they were on a colonizing ship. And he's how many colonists? And he was like 2,000. Now that scene is 3 times more chilling, because David's like interior, his mind is going crazy like a pinball machine with excitement about all the potential opportunities here to host these neomorphs.
I loved the scene where the neomorphs are the white ones, right?
Yes.
Where he's like talking about it being like a horse, and if you breathe on it, it'll be yours. And the neomorph's just like standing right in front of him.
Oh God, yeah.
And then Billy Crudup's character, takes him out or whatever.
The pain that you see in David's face right there.
It was incredible.
Like a parent.
Yeah. It was amazing. And I think that's the second you realize for sure he's like something's going on. He's not, the David. Of course, you kind of realize that even building through Prometheus.
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, he was straight up the villain in Prometheus.
Yeah.
He deliberately on screen did many things to cause the death of many people.
Right.
And so, like, we knew that David was twisted then, but there was this, I don't know, there was this sense of maybe David realized the error of his ways. Like, he might have, realized he's responsible for everyone. So that's why he's saving this group.
Right.
Until he starts asking questions, he starts cutting his hair, and you're like, okay, this is what he's been waiting for.
Yeah.
See, whenever I watched Prometheus initially, and I guess until I saw this movie, I realized I was wrong. I thought that David was doing those things at the behest of Wayland.
Right.
So I thought that he was a puppet.
Right. I think you're allowed to believe that. I think the movie lets you go down that road.
Yeah.
So after this, and like knowing that this was David's intention all along, and that he was the one making those decisions, initially you don't see xenomorphs for, I'd say, the first 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah, 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah, you see neomorphs, the white ones, and I think they're even more terrifying than the xenomorphs are, honestly. just because it was so small and terrifying in the beginning, and that the fact that it comes out of your back or you vomit
Well, it just
out.
comes out.
It just
wherever
comes
it
out.
can
It
come
finds
out.
a way out of your
finds a
body.
way out
Yeah.
of your body.
Yeah. So
Somebody help me with the physics. Like how is this being growing that fast
that has
inside
been
of
a
you?
discussion about xenomorphs and neomorphs since the dawn of their
Since
existence.
the original
Yeah, it makes
movie.
no sense to me. Like
Yeah.
it seems to go against the laws of thermodynamics. Like it's you can't create matter.
Ingest that amount to
Yeah, there's just those little spores
yeah.
Right.
go in the ears, and then all of a sudden, within what 30 minutes, within
Yeah.
15 minutes probably.
It's the size of a baby.
Yeah,
And then within a day, it's 9 feet tall.
yeah. Like where's that matter coming from?
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, this year, so when's original Aliens take place? 2049?
2049.
So,
And this one takes place in
I thought this one took place in like
2104.
2104.
So this one, I think you're thinking 2149.
2149.
Yeah.
So, yeah, somewhere in there. But last year, science allowed us to take nanomolecules, okay, and human tissue, and we've been able to grow human ears or human appendages in the matter of just days. So the idea behind this, you know what I mean, the technology is so much more close to being real than we fathom. But granted, we can't just ingest some spores and grow an entire being,
Right.
an animate object, but it lends some weight to this premise, But you're right, the scale.
It's just
and
weird
timing,
to think how that would work. Like,
I think it
because-
just adds to the horror element of this being
it's
the
what makes it
perfect
so much more
species.
terrifying. Yeah, is that it can adapt to your internals and
Yeah.
become that.
So,
any other specifics you guys wanted to go into, or
Spoilers.
yeah, any other things you wanted to mention?
so yeah, it turns out that David is the one at the end of the ship, and I knew it was David that whole time, but as soon as she started talking about the cabin,
Oh man,
I just got chills.
Yeah,
because he
doesn't know about the cabin.
Yeah, he didn't know about the cabin, and then just the look on her face, and then he gets that smile on his face, and I'm like, oh, I knew it was him, but
Yeah,
and then he
a good
vomits.
finish.
He vomits out the face
Embryos.
hugger
Facehugger
embryos, and yeah.
to put them in the cryo chamber with the rest, or the incubator, excuse me, with
So
the rest of
that
those humans.
means they have to be queens. They have to be queen facehuggers, right?
Do
So-
facehuggers have queens?
Well, no, the facehuggers are a delivery mechanism. That's all they are. It's a creature.
There are queen facehuggers.
So the facehugger's job is to implant or deliver.
Right, I got that, yeah.
And then they die after that. It's sort of like a bee.
Yeah.
Like, once it stings, the stinger rips out.
Right.
Once that biological organism is separated from the facehugger, it just cribbles up and dies like a spider. A terrifying horseshoe spider-like monster. I'm terrified of horseshoe spiders. It's a thing. But with the facehugger embryos that he puts in there, I don't necessarily know that they have to be facehugger queens. I think that's part of their adaptive nature.
because here's the thing: xenomorphs are drones. They don't have reproductive organs. Only the queen can
that's
lay
right.
the eggs.
Yeah, you're right.
So
That one of those has to be.
one
at
of those
least-
has to be a queen because they have to, fill more eggs, which have more facehuggers to infect every single one of those. So those two have to be queen facehuggers for him to infect that entire colony,
Wow.
or at least one of them does.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait for Awakenings
Yep.
to
Can you
see what
imagine
happens.
2,000 of those
Robert
things?
De Niro and
outside of the
I can
AVP
imagine-
environment.
Robin Williams.
No, well,
Robert De Niro.
Just thinking of Aliens. Oh, Awakenings. Yeah, Robert De Niro. But I'm awake.
Oh my god, it's gonna be good.
The only other thing, I mean, we mentioned a little bit how over the top the gore part of the horror was, or the B movie even ish. One of the
Unnecessariness.
last kills, and you mentioned the unnecessary nudity, those kind of things,
Yeah.
and that comes down to one of the last kills. So we can specifically talk about that. Is they're having sex in a shower, and that's
Why?
when they both. Yeah, but exactly, like
No point.
there's
Absolutely none.
no point to it whatsoever, other than
Boobs.
the other B movie. And honestly,
It
the
reminds-
boobs weren't that I mean, the nudity part of it wasn't that big a part of it. It was just that they were in a shower.
It reminded me of Good Will Hunting when he's talking to the girl and he asks her if she wants to have caramels, and she's like, "Why that?" And he goes, "It's just as arbitrary as anything else."
Is drinking coffee?
It's drinking coffee, and that's what that scene reminded me of. It's like, why do they have to be naked having sex in a shower? It could have been just as arbitrary as they were reading books or any other activity. You know what I mean? But
but I think the movie wanted to focus on that element of the horror nature of it. That is a horror trope. The idea that the bad guy will kill you
or
while you're having
sex.
sex.
You're doing
exactly.
this thing. Yeah.
So that, it's a classic horror trope. And
so
they tried to have
a
a classic image of like the xenomorph tails coming under their legs or whatever.
That was the only practical effect for the creatures in the entire movie.
Really?
That tail.
Oh, wow.
Everything else was CGI. Here's what really makes me mad, because I watched the making of. So what they did is they made full-size practical effects for these creatures, but then they handed them over to the CGI department so that they could render them for the CGI. They made the practical effects so they could be rendered in CGI.
Did you think the CG was bad, though?
It was. It's so uncanny.
You just wanted it to be
only
practical.
One scene was terribly obviously bad. It was
really
beyond.
Which one was it? It was so obvious I missed it.
Right after the backburster bursts out of him,
his
whole body becomes liquid and falls backwards over itself, and it was the worst. It was one of the worst CG scenes I've seen in a long time.
I'm talking about just
he
the
turns into a puddle
xenomorph in
of
general was uncanny valley. Because I'm so used to the practical effects of it all.
Yeah, that's what made the original Alien. When we finally got a full shot of a xenomorph, okay. And its movement is a person in a suit, okay? And they've got this articulating tail that's being controlled. It's freaky because the movement is just so, And
it's human enough.
But that wasn't here.
No.
Okay.
In this movie, what we've got, they've created these practical effects of the suits, right? And these things. And then we've had them mocapped and digitized. And once you mocap it and digitize it, it creates this semi-robotic. It's just not as fluid, no matter how hard you try.
In Alien 1 and 2, it was a guy in a suit. And I think in Alien 3 was stop motion, like a...
something. I don't remember. I know that I know the practical effect of the suit for the first two because I watched, the in-depth making ofs on that, and it was fantastic.
Because H.R. Geiger is a genius, and I just wish that there were more practical effects implemented. That's my call.
I'm a practical effect nut. That's my thing. I love them.
See, I just don't want to be taken out of the movie.
That's my thing.
I don't care if it's CG. I don't care if it's practical. If it takes
CG
me out of the movie,
can be done well enough to do that, then I agree.
But I'm telling you, practical effects can take me out of a movie too if they're not done well. Like, I'm be like, oh, that's obviously a guy in a suit. Well, that doesn't help. You know what I mean? Like
if we did Planet of the Apes,
right?
All practical effects.
Yeah,
so they did.
Good point.
So I think some, and I get that there are things you can do with practical effects that you still can't do necessarily with CG. But at the end of the day, I just don't want to be taken out of the movie because I can tell it's fake. That's what we're going for. Anything else you guys want to chat out there?
After hearing that theory about David at the end, does that make you appreciate the movie a little bit more?
Yeah, okay. I think so.
So, all right.
Yeah, and I think they'll touch. I mean, I still don't think it still would be Maybe it had just crossed over into the barely liked it, but I ended up giving it like a B-. So I think I'd still be
respectable
right around
for
there.
an Alien movie.
Yeah,
very much.
I think
from where they've ended up,
I gave Prometheus a C+.
I don't think the films themselves lend themselves to being in the territory of being an A movie. There's some inherent flaws designed in these movies, Yeah,
but I think Aliens is a B+, A-. Like that's a really
really
good movie.
A+.
It's because he's got an affection.
No, I get it totally. Yeah, I totally understand.
No, it's one of the greatest action movies of all time, and I would care about every single one of those characters. The implementation of the actual Queen Alien, because it's the first time we'd ever seen it. The greatest sci-fi line of all time, get away from her, you be, and just that fight at the end. I was on my feet first time I saw it. I'm like, let's do this. And
I was watching, because they were showing it before we went into the movie. Aliens was on, and it was the scene, the knife scene, the knife on the hand scene. But it looked so fake. It was like, you could tell, like, when they sped up the film.
Yeah.
It was like...
Well, they had to do that,
No,
back
I
then.
I know. But some of that stuff just doesn't necessarily hold up. But
R.I.P. BP.
Anything else you guys want to mention in spoilers?
No, it's good. It's good. Watch it. If you're a fan of the franchise, it's
that's what I think. And I even said that in my review. Even though I didn't enjoy it, if you love Alien... especially when it comes down to some of the stuff I didn't like about the horror, like the gore stuff. A lot of people, that's what they love in the movie.
Yeah.
And if that's what you love, my goodness, you're going to have a great time at this movie. But it wasn't necessarily for me.
I'm sorry if you wanted to wrap this up, but I just thought of something that could lead us down another discussion.
Hey, take it away, man.
For where this has to lead in the future. So in Alien 1, with the Sigourney Weaver one, that was an engineer ship that they were on, but it was full of xenomorph eggs. So how did David get that? Does that mean that David had to go back, fill that engineer ship up with eggs, and then send it off on its own? Because
something like that, yeah.
Says that's a continuity thing that is going to have to be addressed. Because how did he get all of those xenomorph eggs on that engineer ship?
I just hope we eventually get in the final prequel or whatever, like the Princess Leia in Rogue One moment, where it just like directly goes in to Alien 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
I like that
To
a
tie
lot.
it all together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hope.
I don't think they'll use the word hope in this one.
Alien.
Death.
Alien.
Blood. All right. Check back next week. We should be talking spoilers, probably more on Pirates, although maybe Baywatch. I don't know.
I want to see this so bad.
I'd rather I would rather review Baywatch than Pirates.
I think we'll
Me
review them
too.
both, actually.
Yeah.
Since they come out, since Baywatch is actually out Wednesday night,
Yeah.
and Pirates is Thursday night, like I think we'll have time to see them, so we'll probably talk about them both.
Okay.
And then just not do like a best ever challenge or something like that. But whatever the case, we'll be back talking spoilers next week. Thanks for checking it out.
Bye. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye.